Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Docs news update with myself, Amal Patana, and of course, Patrick Holmes. Today, we're going to be talking about semaglutide, the recent NICE guidelines, specifically looking at high-dose semaglutide for weight loss in those with obesity. And pleasure to be joined by Hannah Bieber, who I'm going to let introduce herself because she's got a new exciting title, so hopefully soon.
Thanks, Emma. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me along. So I'm Hannah Bieber. I am in an RPS-approved consultant pharmacist post at Leeds for diabetes.
And really, I just want to really get into it. Actually, why waste time? We've got something exciting to talk about. So this is the semaglutide guidelines. So we know that we have semaglutide 1 milligram, 1.5, and 1 milligram use in those with type 2 diabetes. However, recently we have the semaglutide 2.4 milligrams or Wegovy, which has just come out. I'm just going to read the nice guidance on that, just to clarify things. Semaglutide for managing overweight and obesity. It's recommended as an option for weight management, including weight loss and weight maintenance, alongside a reduced calorie diet and increased physical activity in adults only if it is used for a maximum of 2 years and within a specialist weight management service providing multidisciplinary management of overweight or obesity, including but not limited to tier 3 or tier 4 services. And they have at least one weight-related comorbidity and a body mass index BMI of at least 35 kilograms per meter squared, or BMI 30 to 34.9, and meet criteria for referral to weight management service as per NICE criteria. And of course, using lower BMI thresholds in those of ethnic minority. And also, yeah, that's the main thing, considering stopping it in certain situations as well. So that's the broad guideline. Just want to really get your thoughts. So Hannah, first, really, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting, Amar. I think that, we've been a bit stuck in a rut, haven't we, with what our options have been for weight management. So it's really nice to have a new kid on the block. It's certainly a very efficacious kid on the block as well. So I think that we can expect some really great weight loss from this, and hopefully some really good outcomes for people who are suffering with comorbidities associated with obesity as well. So I'm excited to see what the results of this will be across our locality. And it's expanded its sort of reach as well, hasn't it? So it's now would include, for example, people living with diabetes, which is obviously an area of interest of mine. So I'm really excited to see where this lands. It's slightly worried about how services might be going to cope with this. So I think that's my main reservation at the moment, is how do we effectively get this to the people who need it, and how do we do that equitably?
And Patrick, what about yourself? Your first thoughts?
I mean, first of all, it's not a guideline. If we're being pedantic, it's a technology appraisal, which means it's higher up in terms of the hierarchy when it comes to funding from NICE, because this is really an instruction from NICE just to get on and do it. There's no need for local negotiation. This is the highest level of advice. So, and I thought it was, I mean, amazing. I mean, hugely, I think, as Hannah says, challenging, because we're not talking about a rare condition here. This is there's lots of people, but if we're serious about, I don't know, leveling up or health equity, this is one of those sorts of conditions where clearly there's health inequity in terms of people who have obesity or higher levels of BMI, for that, if we're using that as the measure. That's related to there's a huge, obviously, association with lower levels of education or higher levels of deprivation. So if we're serious about this, it's a huge opportunity, as well as all the challenges. I think Hannah alludes to, is how the hell we do this at any sort of scale.
Before semaglutide, there's obviously liraglutide, 3 milligrams of Saxenda, which was licensed. And looking at, I was going to look at some of the kind of key criteria which that was recommended for in the setting of obesity. And again, it's the same thing. Liraglutide 3 milligrams recommended as an option in managing overweight and obesity, along with reduced calorie diet and physical activity. But here they mention not just the BMI, but also they should have non-diabetic hyperglycemia. So an HbA1c between 42 and 47, or fasting plasma glucose of 5.5 and 6.9, as well as a high risk of cardiovascular disease, hypertension, dyslipidemia, and in a tier 3 weight management service, which is interesting. And that's really, I guess, quite different to what was mentioned for semaglutide. So is this guideline now saying forget about liraglutide and focus on semaglutide now?
I'll quickly come on that. Yes, I think is the answer, because you've also missed off that there needs to be some sort of commercial agreement on the Saxenda dose of liraglutide. So that meant it could only go through very specialized clinic, and with semaglutide, there's no mention of that. So when it's already licensed, but when it's actually commercially available, i.e. in wholesalers and in pharmacies, when, you can just go ahead and prescribe it. There's, within these criteria, which, as I say, requires a bit of work on it, if, in terms of the NHS.
As I mentioned earlier, semaglutide is used in those with type 2 diabetes as well, and the recent NICE guidelines have also updated it with GLP-1s slightly. With the new semaglutide and weight loss guide, they do mention in lower BMI 30-35 and other comorbidities and things like type 2 diabetes. So what does that mean for semaglutide dosing in type 2 diabetes? What are the considerations?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to consider that. And it comes back to a little bit like the SGLT2s in a way. We need to have a record of what we've started it for so that we kind of know why they're on that dose. Obviously, technically, they would only qualify for that higher dose for 2 years. So, which is just a bit crazy, really, because then you're going to have to potentially step somebody's dose down within a 2-year period, which is, I think that needs to be worked through. I'm not sure that's been properly thought through in the guidance that's been given, or the TA, sorry, Patrick, the TA that has been given to us to pick apart. But this is, all of these things need to be kind of thrashed out, I think, at sort of local level or at regional levels to kind of think about what you're going to do. But it is really important that we do record what we've started things for, so that we kind of know what we're aiming for, really, with regards to dose and to get the results for people as well. And maybe that they end up reversing their diabetes, for example, by a significant weight loss. So it might not be an issue.
I think you're absolutely right, Hannah. I think it's all about documenting, because, of course, that NICE TA was on about managing overweight and obesity, not type 2 diabetes. So it may not be licensed for type 2 diabetes, and that's a whole kettle of fish, but for people who know the evidence and are aware of the risk benefit and can communicate that in a shared decision-making way with a consenting adult, then there should be, that I think is an option for those people. Unfortunately, that's not the masses because it's not licensed, but I think, but if specialists are treating people with diabetes go with the higher doses, my reading of this is that's outside of that guidance, because you're actually using it to primarily treat their dysglycemia rather than a treatment for obesity. I appreciate there's some, you could say there's semantics, which, and I think you'd probably beat me on that little argument. But it's it's all about the glucose in it. This diabetes life.
Funny, because that was dominating conversation at ADA, wasn't it, about that weight loss or HbA1c reduction. Time for another time we can debate about that. Last question really to you both really is where do we go from here? Now you both have quite system level roles, so kind of where do we go with this guideline? Do we do, you mentioned, Patrick, about that psychological services and things like that, and what that means in tiered management or not. But what are the next steps, or what we might want to see done?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's, whose hot potato is this? I mean, I'm the diabetes guy, which means, of course, weight doesn't matter at all for the condition I've sort of committed a large chunk of my life to. So it's bonkers, but that's in a different department. So what I need to do is, in a sense, lobby that department, say, this is really important. Can we make it happen? And why would I want it to make it happen? It's about that health inequity. Instead of waiting for people to develop diet, we've got areas in the Northeast where, for a male, healthy life expectancy is 62. That's Hartlepool. What? They don't even get to retirement age. So, and if you compare that, I don't know, with some leafy place in North Yorkshire or something like that, that would, it would be, I'm being cheeky there, but it's, there is huge amounts of inequity, and I think there's an opportunity at a system level to try to think about things differently and actually shift resources. That's going to I suspect, upset a few people. But if we're serious about delivering that leveling up, I think we need to be trying to focus on these sorts of conditions. So that's why I think it's a great opportunity. But at the same time, there's a huge challenge if that's going to happen, because, yeah, we've got this issue called manpower. But there are opportunities in terms of perhaps digital as a way of doing it. So that would be my thoughts in terms of how we square the circle here, is to look at bringing in both some sort of primary care element with some sort of specialist, maybe digital element, without, and at the same time being sympathetic to the whole issue of the digital divide, which will also, go cut straight across these sorts of conversations. But yeah, so I think it's a great opportunity to actually do something different, interesting, and leveling up.
Yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity, I think, to kind of have a good hard look at what weight management services are currently delivering. I think that there's quite a few things that probably need some reflection on where we're at currently, and how we need to kind of reset based on this new TA. So it's kind of forcing us probably to do a bit of work that we probably needed to do anyway, in a way. So I think it's good, and it's certainly getting me to know my weight management services better in Leeds, and how that works actually across our ICS, which is going to be even more important as we form that in July. So we have one of the only Tier 4 services. So, even reflecting on where's the role of surgery in this, what are the right cohorts to go into these different pools, I suppose, for the different types of management. So who should be kind of fast tracked for that surgical option, and what's the capacity of our surgeons? Well, the answer to that is they have no capacity. They've got a huge waiting list. Is there something about using this as a stopgap for surgery for those who are at high risk? And for some, it'll be enough. So what are those cohorts of people? What do they look like? And who are those people who will manage to potentially use that for 2 years and really have a benefit? It will reset them, if you like, put their set point back to a decent weight, and they'll be able to maintain. And then there'll be the ones that do need some other intervention, and potentially those will be the ones that we need to kind of prepare for surgery in those more intensive services, both at Tier 3 and then moving into Tier 4. So it's actually, we need to look at all of our weight management services. So in Leeds, we're doing a big piece of work starting very shortly, actually. I think next week potentially, we've all got a bunch of workshops to start to think about who are these cohorts, what should it look like, bring all our ideas together, and try to see where we go with this. So yeah, it's a good opportunity for us to sit as a system and start doing some of this system-wide working.
I guess it boils down to that kind of cliche of prevention is better than cure, but also early intervention is key. But not forgetting that while it's pharmacotherapy, there's a lot of other kind of aspects of weight management that we have to look into. Beyond the pharmacology, there's the psychology, there's the obviously there's the surgical side of things, but there's also the lifestyle, diet, and exercise, and that whole piece on that. And it's actually investing that, do it properly, rather than using it as a kind of quotation marks as what you advise. So interesting times. I'd be interested to hear what you say next, actually, what you do next, actually, both of you, and maybe in the future we can talk about that as well. But thank you for your time. We're keeping this short. I know you want to talk, Patrick, but we're going to keep it short this time. Maybe another time, but appreciate it. Thanks for listening, everyone, and stay tuned for more updates from ourselves. Please do subscribe and follow us all on Twitter and YouTube. Thank you.